Guys, I'm telling you, man, the amount of news that's rolling out every single day now, right before Christmas, it's like a Christmas present for political junkies like me. But, for you guys, you may be overwhelmed with what's going on. The political chess match right now is absolutely incredible, right? What we're seeing is so far removed from traditional politics. I personally can't think of any time in history where I've seen something quite like this in American politics. But President Trump, along with threatening not to sign the spending/stimulus pork bill, he has now officially vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the defense spending bill, again, that is passed every single year, just like the omnibus spending bill. He's vetoed that because he wants to take a stand against big tech, woke culture, and give the president more authority to pull out of useless wars. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get into this. Trump vetoes National Defense Bill, setting up override vote. President Trump vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act on Wednesday, sending the legislation back to the House. The NDAA has been passed every year in some form for the past 59 years, and the current iteration allocates around $740 billion in defense spending, as well as a 3% pay raise for the American troops. Trump has threatened to veto the bill unless Congress also repeals Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act and gave the president greater leeway to withdraw American troops stationed in Germany, South Korea, and Afghanistan. All right. So President Trump is essentially saying, listen, I want to repeal Section 230, which grants platforms immunity from being sued and being liable for what users post on their platform. But it does this as long as the platform is not a publisher. But platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, big tech social media companies have been trying to have their cake and eat it too. They've been enjoying the protections of being a platform where users just post and they're not held liable for their users' posts, while at the same time being able to act as a publisher and censoring those users' posts. President Trump said, no, I'm tired of this. I'm done with this. We need to fix this. You guys cannot have your cake and eat it too. And this is particularly important for conservatives because we have been censored all over the place, to the point where we have to run to platforms like Parler and Rumble in order to find a place where we can freely speak our minds without being censored by the big tech overlords like Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and, all the others. So this is a big deal for Trump, and he's passionately fighting against this, even to the point where, he did veto the military spending bill in order to try to fight back against big tech. So that takes a lot of cojones to do, because this is in a direct face of the establishment. Also, President Trump wants greater leeway to withdraw American troops stationed in Germany, South Korea, Afghanistan. A lot of people, a lot of us, including conservatives and liberals, far leftists, will see this as a good thing, because it's easy to get into wars. But once we get into wars, it seems to be hard to pull out of them, right? And President Trump has been trying to pull out for the longest time, and he has been bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray by the establishment generals, because they're trying to continue to have endless wars, and that's the establishment policy. So additionally, Trump opposed a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act that requires the government to rename U.S. Army bases named after figures in the Confederacy. The bill, quote, fails to include critical national security measures, includes provisions that fail to respect our veterans and our military history, and contradicts efforts by my administration to put America first, Trump said in a statement. All right, so this is a tricky one, right? In terms of the Confederate military bases. As you guys know, I live in North Carolina. We have Confederate named stuff everywhere, right? Like Fort Bragg. There's a Stonewall Street everywhere. There's Confederate graveyards everywhere. I mean, I went to a school where the main monument was a Confederate monument called Silent Sam, that the woke leftists made the school cave in on. Guys, quite honestly, I can't speak for people in the military, and I'm gonna get into that, but I honestly don't give a damn, right? I don't care about things being named after Confederate soldiers, right? And the reason why is because they have no effect on my life. The Confederacy has no effect over me. I do not let what happened in the past dictate my future. I don't let it control me. I don't let it think down about me. I personally don't let it affect me, right? So I don't care if a street is named after a Confederate person or a building name. I really don't give a damn, personally. However, this is a tricky issue. And the reason why is because back in June, when Black Lives Matter was going ham over the George Floyd protest, the Black National Guard members expressed discomfort quelling Black Lives Matter protesters, right? So basically, this became a military issue because it seemed like some National Guard members did not want to actually do anything about the Black Lives Matter protest and movement. Let's just read a little bit of this here. A number of public officials, retired military officers, and protesters were concerned with the Washington, D.C. National Guard role in clearing Lafayette Square and suppressing protests in the nation's capital last week for a presidential photo op. So too were the Guard members themselves, according to new reports. According to reporting from the New York Times, when asked to employ, quote, aggressive tactics against local civilians, quote, Black members of the D.C. Guard objected to turning on their neighbors. Some members of the majority minority force, quote, were so ashamed and taking part against the protest that they have kept it from their family members. So as you guys can see there, that's the issue that I'm kind of bringing up in regards to the potential issue with the Confederate names on these military bases. Again, like I said, I told you guys, I don't really care. But again, some people in the military who are Black or minorities could be offended. And with the woke mob coming out in force and trying to educate people on our history, you know, they could feel a certain type of way, and that could affect the morale of certain troops. Now, it also can go the other way, right? So let's say that the woke mob gets their way, and they start renaming these bases again, like, you know, for example, Fort Bragg, they rename it to something else. That could also offend a lot of people who may have some connection or maybe descendants of those in the Confederacy. And it could also be symbolic of the growing changes that are being made, led by the woke mob, of course, to rename everything, get rid of anybody that was bad in history or did anything that we consider bad by today's standard in history, and just erase everything, change everything, and start over, right? So honestly, like I said, I don't really have a right answer to this one because I think it's pros and cons either way, but I'm just highlighting the potential issue that is there. I think this is a very gray area issue. So that's something to keep an eye on, right? So like I said, me personally, I really don't give a damn, but I can't speak for people in the military on that. Both the House and Senate passed the NDAA by veto-proof margins, with 84 senators voting in favor and roughly 80% of House lawmakers approving the legislation. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell urged the president on Tuesday not to veto the bill and scheduled a veto override section for December 29th in case Trump made good on his threat. All right, guys, so keep in mind, this is something that Mitch McConnell is for, Nancy Pelosi is for, the establishment is for. And I mean, the reason for that is obvious, right? The establishment is in love with unlimited military spending and endless wars. That's what they're in love with. And Trump has been in opposition to that to a certain extent. And this impasse with the spending bill is kind of a result of that. So check out Mitch McConnell here speaking about how he hopes Trump doesn't veto the bill.
Status of the Defense Authorization Bill. The Senate has passed its annual bill to support our service members and our national security every year for the last 59 years. As I indicated when I filed cloture on the NDAA conference report after Thanksgiving, my intention was and is to ensure the Senate continues fulfilling our obligation to the men and women of our armed forces. I hope the President will not veto this bill. which redoubles our commitment to modernization, advances cutting-edge capabilities, and equips our military with the tools and resources they need to compete with our great power adversaries on land, on sea, in the air, and in cyberspace. These are the steps we need to take to continue to compete with Russia and China. In the event that President Trump does elect to veto this bipartisan bill, it appears the House may choose to return after the holidays to set up a vote to consider the veto. The Democratic leader and I have agreed to a unanimous consent request as follows. The Senate will meet for pro forma sessions only until December the 29th, when we will return to session. In the event that the President has vetoed the bill and the House has voted to override the veto, the Senate would have the opportunity to process the veto override at that time.
All right, guys. So you hear that? Mitch McConnell basically explains the importance of the bill, why they want it, and he hopes that the president doesn't veto it. But if he does, they're prepared to override it. Now, some representatives like Matt Thornberry and Liz Cheney were among supporters of the NDAA. Quote, we ought to pass the NDAA and the president should not veto it and we should override it. Cheney told CNN early in December, Senator Rand Paul has been vocal in his opposition against the bill, saying it does not give Trump enough power to withdraw troops from foreign nations. Quote, they believe that president has the power to go to war anywhere, anytime, Paul said of the NDAA supporters on December 10th. Quote, but when the president tries to remove troops, they say, oh, no. What we really want are 335 generals in Congress to tell him that he can't leave a war. All right. So, yeah, Rand Paul is basically reiterating kind of what I said at the beginning of this, in which, like I said, it's very easy for us to get into wars, but it's very, very hard for us to pull out. Once we're there, we tend to stay there for a long, long, long time. And President Trump, you know, is basically saying, hey, we need to add some provisions in this thing that allows the president to pull out a lot easier than what it is right now. Right. So he's trying to give more power to the executive branch to pull us out of these wars and to pull us out of these countries that we're not even at war with, like Germany. Right. Like, what are we doing in Germany? But all right, guys. So there you have it. That's the rundown on this Defense Authorization Act. And President Trump vetoing it. Now, to be quite honest with you, I'm not going to be surprised if Congress overrides his veto, just because they're both in agreement on this. And unlike the spending bill, this is not in the direct light of the American citizens, right? Like, there's not $2,000 in stimulus on the line and, you know, people exposing all the pork spending that our government does in this. This is more of a military thing. It also has military pay raises in it. So there's a lot of pros and cons to it, right? And at this point, it's been a tradition to pass it for so long, right? Like I said, I think it's been like 59 years or so. I think the last president where this had some problems was Lyndon B. Johnson. So it's just been one of those things where the establishment has just been determined to just have this thing passed every single year, you know, business as usual. And I think they're going to end up overriding it successfully, mainly because it's not really in the spotlight and it's not as much of a controversial issue like the current stimulus / spending bill is. And I think that the Republicans are probably going to make a calculated decision just to go ahead and try to override the veto because they can kind of do it without too much spotlight. But, you know, people like me are covering it just to let you guys know that this is what's happening. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.